Malaysia's economy, as measured by GDP, grew by 2.9% year-on-year in the second quarter, driven mainly by private sector expenditure amid improving labour market conditions, continued increase in domestic demand and higher tourism activities. Growth moderated from 5.6% year-on-year growth in the first quarter due to weaker external demand amid global technology down cycle, lower commodity production as well as the high base effect from the second quarter of 2022. GDP growth for the entire year is likely to come in at the lower end of Bank Negara's forecast range of 4 to 5%, according to Governor Datuk Sheikh Abdul Rashid Ghaffur. He explains that growth will continue due to a number of factors, including Malaysia's strong labour condition and progress in multi-year projects by both the private and public sectors. Abdul Rashid reiterates that private consumption remains as the anchor of growth for the economy. BNM expects employment to grow by 2.4% and policy measures are also in place to support those affected. On inflation, Abdul Rashid said headline inflation is expected to average close to the lower bound of the central bank's forecasted range of 2.8 to 3.8% in 2023. He said that in line with the easing cost environment, headline inflation continues to trend lower in the second quarter, averaging 2.8% for the quarter as compared to 3.6% for the first quarter. According to Abdul Rashid, while core inflation also moderated to 3.4% during the quarter, compared with 3.9% in the first quarter of 2023, it still remains elevated relative to the historical average of around 2%, and as such he says the central bank needs to remain vigilant. On the ringgit, Abdul Rashid said with investors' expectations of further aggressive monetary policy tightening in the US and other advanced economies throughout the first half of the year, the ringgit depreciated by 4.7% against the US dollar year to date. Nonetheless, Abdul Rashid notes that the local currency has appreciated 1.1% against the greenback since July 1st, amid overall market expectations that the monetary policy tightening campaign in the US is nearing its end. Meanwhile, Abdul Rashid also said that Malaysia's well-diversified economy enables it to withstand risks from China's slower economic growth, as the country does not heavily depend on one particular trade partner or industry. He points out that although China is Malaysia's second largest trade partner, it only accounts for 13.6% of Malaysia's total trade. CelcomDigi's net profit for the second quarter jumped 56% year-on-year to 343.5 million from 220 million a year ago, as revenue doubled to 3.12 billion from 1.54 billion ringgit. The telco declared a second interim dividend of 3.2 cents per share. In a BOS filing, CelcomDigi attributed the revenue growth for the second quarter to higher device sales, while subscriber base grew by 3% with net additions of 599,000. Blended average revenue per user slipped to 41 ringgit from 42 ringgit a year ago. During the quarter under review, CelcomDigi said it ramped up integration activities and invested 252 million in capex, catering for network capacity upgrades and integration initiatives. The telco adds that as key projects have commenced in June 2023 onwards, it expects capex to intensify for the second half. For the first half, CelcomDigi recorded a net profit of 661.4 million, which was 45% higher year-on-year, while revenue for the 6 months more than doubled to 6.3 billion from 3.06 billion ringgit. This marks CelcomDigi's second full quarter of combined financial reporting post-merger of Celcom Axiata and Digi.com. Looking ahead, CelcomDigi said it remains focused on delivering top-line growth and profitability while pushing ahead with integration of its networks, IT and organisation. CEO Datuk Idham Nawawi says the country's largest telco remains committed to leading 5G adoption in the country and have put in place initiatives such as the CelcomDigi My 5G CEO Roundtable series to help businesses realise the true potential of 5G together. Construction firm Kerjaya Prospek's non-independent, non-executive chairman Datuk T. Eng Ho said the political stability arising from the outcome of the just concluded six-state elections is set to be a major tailwind for the local economy moving forward, boosting the group's prospects. According to T, the worst is over. His optimism is also fueled by his view on the overnight policy rate, where he feels that it will not go up anymore. T explains that these factors would encourage foreign direct investment in the country, which will boost construction construction activity and therefore bring in more jobs for the group. In the second quarter, its net profit rose 10.6% year-on-year to 31.57 million as it posted a record revenue of 309.3 million for the quarter. For the first half of FY 2023, net profit improved 6.2% year-on-year to 61 million on the back of a 5% increase in revenue to 606.5 million ringgit. It had declared a second interim dividend of 2 cents per share. He says the group is on track to achieve its new order book win target of 1.2 billion after it clinched a total of 983.8 million worth of contracts so far this year. It has an outstanding order book of 4.5 billion as at end June. Pestech International called the termination of the aerotrain project made by Malaysia Airports Holdings as misconceived and invalid. In a boss filing, Pestech said it firmly disputes the termination as contemplated in the termination notice and will enforce its legal rights as necessary, but prefers to seek an amicable solution with the airport operators unit, Malaysia Airports Sepang. Additionally, it has issued a formal letter to this effect. In a separate filing, Pestech said that the termination of the 742.95 million contract is expected to pose unfavorable effects to both its earnings and revenue for FY 2024. The group has been loss-making since the fourth quarter of FY 2022. To recap, MAHB's unit had awarded the contract to a subsidiary of Pestech in December 2021, only for it to be terminated this week, with MAHB citing various reasons, one of which was non-performance. This had been Pestech's biggest contract win to date. Citigroup's Singapore subsidiary and CIMB Group Holdings are among banks affected by a major money laundering case in the Citi state involving about 1 billion Sing dollars of assets. According to Bloomberg, the two lenders were used in 2020 and 2021 by some of the foreign nationals who were arrested in raids this week across the country, according to charge documents. Two Chinese nationals, Zhang Yujin and Lin Baoying, were charged for seeking to cheat CIMB Bank about their ownership and sale of a property in Macau. Turkish national Van Shuming was charged for allegedly submitting a fake document to Citibank Singapore, while Cambodian national Su Baolin was charged for falsely claiming he was an executive director of a firm in a supporting document to the US bank. CIMB in a statement said that it does not comment on any individuals' ongoing investigations or court proceedings and is fully committed to strong corporate governance and strict compliance with banking standards, laws and regulations. The Monetary Authority of Singapore said on Wednesday that suspicious fund flows, dubious documentation of the source of wealth, as well as other inconsistencies prompted unnamed banks to file suspicious transaction reports to authorities. The regulator added that it will take firm action against financial institutions if there are breaches of anti-money laundering rules.